What's the biggest challenge you've faced working on any project so far, and how did you overcome it? You have to include that part.
Incompetent people. No. I think that's definitely like a big part.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Incompetent people, and it's just like, and the solution is as simple as like kicking them out and then picking up the slack.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like one of the bigger challenges. Honestly, like, I think that like working within restrictions and like all that stuff is super challenging, but it's not super challenging because again, I find that fulfilling. It's more so like working with people that I can't trust, and working with incompetent people, and working with people that like I'm just like, wow, like I don't know how you got into this position.
Yeah.
Like, and it's infuriating to me, because like nothing grinds my gears more than like just being in the same space as someone who is like doesn't really push me forward, and it feels like I'm dragging them to the finish line, and it's like they're weighing me down, and I'm just like I just like this urge to like cut them off and like, you know, just like kick them to the curb and be like, no, I don't need you. But I think honestly, like how I overcame it was really just like picking up the slack and like setting a clear boundary and being like, hey, all right. Usually, like for the most part, most of the time, like especially when it's a super incompetent person, I just cut their workload by like 75%, because like I know that like if they can do 25%, like I'm chilling. Like it might be a little tough for the rest of my group members, or like even me in general, to take on that 75%, but also at the same time, like I would rather get a project out than have it be like delayed or whatever, or just like not come out fully. And it's like, at least for that short period of time, I'm still creating something that I have. It's like still some creative freedom, because I'm not waiting for someone who's incompetent to catch up.
Yeah.
And be on the same page.
Absolutely. I agree with the incompetent people stance.
Yeah.
I think most technical issues, you can work through them. If you have the skill set and the resources and the brain capacity, you can work through it, and you don't need consistent assistance. But I don't know.
It just sucks when you're stuck with them.
It does. Yeah. Do you think your experience in retail management has helped you be better at that, taking on that leadership role and being able to remove task delegations when necessary?
Yeah. Because like most of the time I'm just like, you're stuck at your job, I'm firing you, bro. Like, I'm not keeping you. But in terms of design, like I understand that different people have different roles and there's different capabilities, and usually I'm a very understanding person.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely. When I was crashing out in October, you were like, all right, boys, hop on the document. Riley, you can make it pretty tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like you step back, you evaluate, and you're like, you know, I'm understanding. Like, I very much am a very adaptable person, and it takes a lot for me to deem you incompetent. Because you can be incompetent in some areas, but I know that you're competent in a lot of other areas, so I'm gonna play to your strengths. But if you're incompetent in like everything except for one, then it's like, then we got a problem. Like, and that one thing is like something that someone else is good at.
Yeah.
Or
something
it's the
completely
worst.
irrelevant.
Oh yeah, it's the worst. It's like, dude, like, it's like, I'm good at talking to people. It's like, okay, like I guess you can present, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Or if they're like, oh, like I'm good at only making this specific button work, then it's like, fuck, okay, I'm gonna litter this whole fucking prototype with just that one button, bro. Like, yeah, but seriously, like it's just it's being adaptable. Like, so I guess going back to like how do I solve it, it's like changing your mindset and being adaptable and really playing to that incompetent person's strengths. Because eventually you're gonna find their strengths, and eventually you're gonna find something related to like what they can do at like a decent level. So it's just like, okay, you give them that, and if it's only 33% of the project, then like you just have to kind of suck it up, take the L, and then like move on and like recompensate in other areas.
What is a piece of advice in your career that you wish you'd received earlier?
Really follow what your gut tells you, because I think if you try to live to like other people's expectations and other people's like perception or other people's goals, like it just won't necessarily align with what you really want. And you can tell yourself that you want that thing for however long, but it's just really tough to really fully believe it if you just aren't aligned with it. And so, especially like in your career, if like it might not necessarily pertain to design, but if like, you know, like you really don't want to be that like business dude or that like doctor dude or whatever, scientist, then it's like maybe just think about like what actually aligns with who you really feel. Because like I think a lot of, especially being Asian, like a lot of it comes down to like parental pressure. And it's like, I think at the end of the day, it's like, I think your parents just want to see you happy. If they really genuinely are like good people, like they just want to see you happy. So it's like, yeah, sure, like they might be a little bit disappointed that you didn't end up becoming an engineer. But like at the end of the day, if you are happy with what you're doing, then they're also going to be happy later on. Like they might resent you for like a little bit, but like, you know, who doesn't when you don't follow like what you want them to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you handle receiving critique? And how is kind of adapting the way you receive critique helped you come this far?
So I think for me, it used to be really personal. Like I used to take things super personally. Like my work used to be very interlocked with who I was. And I used to like, since I used my life in my work, it started to, and when people critique that, it felt like people were critiquing my life. But like, that's not necessarily the case. People are critiquing you because it just doesn't fit the scope of what they're looking at, and some of it is actually very genuinely valid. So I think that now I kind of see critique more as like an optimization or like something that will increase efficiency or like something for the greater good in terms of like design. I think in terms of like more artistic values, I tend to kind of stray away from what people really want because it's like I already have a vision and I already know what I want, so that's not really up for critique. But if it's something more technical in terms of design, then like for sure, like I won't take it to heart. I still don't take a lot of the critique to heart because it's like even if it's artistic, it's like, oh okay, like that's just your opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And I think going forward, you just really shouldn't take people's opinions too harshly, especially if it's something that's more artistic and creative. But if it's something more technical and something more base, like, hey, like you need to utilize this white space more, you need to utilize like this contrast doesn't seem very well thought out and stuff like that, then very obviously you need to like work on that. And it's something that actually is going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What has been the most rewarding project you've worked on so far?
I think my most rewarding one was actually the very first graphic I did that actually got printed on a t-shirt at Milk Run. That was like the most gratifying because it started to become like something like graphic wise, and something that I did creatively became tangible.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it became something worth of value. Like I remember the t-shirt selling out within the first month, and like that was something so like it was something I felt so proud of.
Yeah.
And still to this day, like a lot of the design stuff that I do now, like I just like to be honest, I have a little bit of ego. I'm like, I know it's gonna sell out. Like I'm just that good. But like but it's like when I first started, I think that was like the biggest, and to this day I still think is one of my biggest successes because it finally validated, like not that I needed the validation, but it validated like, hey, like I actually do have an eye for this. I actually do have some talent for this. And like it's selling out, and it, you know, people being like, yo, like this design is sick, or like this design was really dope. It's like really different from like what you guys usually do. And it's like, and like I remember because we brought in a full size run and like in different colors, and like every single color sold out, and like every single like design sold out. And I was like really, really proud of it. So like, yeah, I think that was like one of my biggest successes. Like your first success for me in particular will be one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah.
And you mentioned previously handling critique differently for technical versus creative skills.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage to balance the two of those skills?
I think if it doesn't feel intuitive, it's not technical enough. But if it feels too bland, it's not creative enough.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's like to balance technical with creative. Creative is you're creating something that you're proud of. And if you don't feel proud of it, it's not creative enough. But if you're getting too many critiques and people are saying that like it doesn't feel intuitive, then it's not technical enough. So like creativity should fulfill you, but technicality should fulfill other people, right?
Right.
And like product is always like a two-sided thing, right? So like think of it this way: creativity will always come from yourself, right?
Yeah.
And especially when people describe you as like being a creative person, it's always like, more so than often, it's always someone telling you that you're creative. It's never like, I'm creative.
Yeah.
Like it's always like, oh man, you're actually really creative for this, or oh, like you're actually really creative for this. And it's because like they see your creativity and they see like you're putting yourself out, right? So but like people will also tell you more often than not if it doesn't feel intuitive, if it doesn't feel right. Like it's like, oh, like this, like people can see creativity, like people can acknowledge creativity, but you can't really critique creativity as your own, because it's like it's an opinion. You know what I mean? But you can critique technicality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like when you're trying to be very technical in design, you need to think about the user or the customer or whatever, right? And that's what makes it technical, right? Even in like in particular experience like Milk Run and in clothing, creativity wise, oh, I can make fucking anything. Like, oh, like it's great. Like, oh, it's specific theme, whatever. Be super creative with that. But then it's like, okay, technicality wise, like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm using the right colors. I'm not using too many, because if there's too many colors, the printer won't print it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and then it's like, if it's too much and it doesn't make a lot of sense and it doesn't align with the theme and there's like the balance is not there, then the customer's not going to buy it. Right.
Yeah.
So that more so challenges my technicality and more of the skills. But like creativity wise, like it like I feel proud of the product that I made. Right. And it has to be a balance of both. I think like you're not going to ever fully be like satisfied with what you make, because there's always going to be iterative improvements and stuff. But like, are you proud enough to display it to other people?
Right.
And like, and then on the flip side, are people like actually using the product and finding it like, oh wow, like I actually want this, right? And so there's the balance there.
So I'm sure you've heard people using the phrase like, oh, real artists, real creative people are never actually truly proud of anything they make. They always think there's something better. Do you think there's truth to that, or do you think that there's a point that you can achieve full pride in something?
I think so, honestly. Like I think I think it's more so for like people who are too obsessed with perfection and if you're too obsessed with perfection, it's more of a personal thing,
right? Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think like all artists in general are very insecure about their work, because it's a very like audience based profession.
Yes,
right,
absolutely. And it's
so
very
like
vulnerable in most cases, especially when it's art versus design. Like art is more vulnerable, obviously, but yeah.
So like if you don't fully feel proud of your work, then it's like there's something a little bit like, and I don't mean to critique and call anyone out, but like it just means that there's something going on with you and you need to kind of feel more comfortable with like stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like if you're fully proud of it, that means like not only did you create work that was fulfilling, but you also like you and yourself are like calm, like you have accepted yourself and you understand and you fully understand yourself, and that's when you can be fully proud of something. Like obviously there's improvements everywhere and like you can always improve on something, but it doesn't mean that you can't fully be proud of the work that you put out in that moment. Right.
Absolutely. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
All the time. I feel like especially even when I'm like especially when I'm like a group leader with like you guys, or like I'm playing like big manager at Milk Run, it feels like I shouldn't be in this position.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like it's not like it's just like I feel like I just grew up like thinking like, oh, like I'm just not qualified to lead people. And like for the longest time I thought that like, oh, I'm just not qualified to like, be in a position of power. I'm always just qualified to like do my work and do the best work possible and then keep it pushing at that point, right? But like to police other people and to like make sure that other people are doing their job is like just something very new to me. And it's weird because I'm a lot older, but like but like it's definitely like having people be like, oh, like you're really dope, like, oh, like you do this very well, or like just receiving praise is just like, maybe it's like a personal life thing, but like it's definitely weird to see more now. So more days, since I'm a lot more secure with myself, that was more so like when I was kind of like having a tumultuous like identity crisis more so before. But now that I'm a lot more secure with myself, and like I understand my identity, and like, I finally have an ego again, it comes less like I understand that, like, hey, like I'm in this position because like I put myself here, and like I'm going to continue to be in positions like this, so I shouldn't feel bad for being in this position. Now, do I ever like question myself like, hey, like this position's like way out of my scope, like I don't even know if I'm like knowledgeable enough for this, right? And don't get me wrong, I think I definitely do have those thoughts, but like at the end of the day, I think I have the wherewithal to really have confidence in myself and be like, okay, like, yeah, like I might not be knowledgeable, but like I do have other skills that like allow me to be in this position.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we move on to the more light and airy personal questions, we're going to chat a bit about the design industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So how do you see the role of designers developing more within the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that designers will always be designers, and it's weird to say, but it's like especially with the rise of AI in the era that we're moving on into, I don't necessarily think that designers will ever not have a job. I will say that it will become less, and it'll become more skilled and more intricate because of the tools that are coming out. I do think that AI will just now become more of a tool that we need to master, and more of a tool that we need to use effectively going forward. But like, you can't really take again, it comes back to the thing of like, with stricter guidelines and better tools, like with stricter guidelines, creativity comes out, right? And like tools in itself, like AI tools in itself, are almost like a stricter guideline, because it's like, oh, like now it's like it takes out a lot of like the fluff, right, I guess, of like some design. And fluff is a bad word to say. It automates a lot of this, a lot of our creativity,
like the monotonous little tasks that are just, you could spend hours racking your brain on.
Yeah.
You can just ask the computer.
Yeah, and it's like it becomes so like big in terms of like what we can do with AI, but like I don't ever think that like designers will be out of a job, because it's like you need to have someone who knows how to use those tools and use them effectively. It's like Adobe Illustrator, it's like it's like Photoshop. Like I feel like people are like kind of freaking out about AI because it's like, oh, like they're gonna take our jobs and all that stuff, but it's like, no, not really. Like, just because Illustrator became a thing, does that mean like animators and pen and paper people just like suddenly went out of business? It's like, no, like there just became less jobs.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you didn't need 30 people to create an animation anymore. You just only needed like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right. And it's going to be the same thing going forward. And it really just goes to show like who's the most ambitious, who's the most creative, and who can work within those restrictions the best.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And it fosters like confidence in. And if you believe that, like, I guess if you believe that AI is going to take your job, then like maybe you need to reevaluate like your skills, your learning, and like if you really are cut out for this industry.
Yeah.
Because like that's the cold hard truth. Like if you don't adapt, if you don't believe that you're creative enough to get those jobs that like require AI and require you to be that one person that's the best at everything,
yeah,
then it's like, hey man, I'm sorry. Like,
absolutely,
maybe this is just not necessarily the career for you.
Yeah, 100%. Because if you're not able to believe that AI is not going to take your job, you're not going to be able to sell yourself to a company who wants to use AI with their design practice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'll be out of work pretty quick.
Yeah. And if anything, if a just dude comes up to me, he's like, hey, I need a website made, but like AI can do it, but like I'm not getting the AI to work right, then it's like, bro, then my job becomes 100% easier. Yeah. I'm just the dude that knows how to use AI properly.
Absolutely. And if that's the standard that they are holding it to, that allows you to take on multiple other projects at that same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just automates more things, and that's why there's like iterations to like Photoshop and Illustrator and all the tools that we use, even Figma. Like it automates a lot of the things that would have taken like maybe like 5-6 coders to do now with just 1 or 2 UX designers to do now, right? Yeah. It's just constantly it sucks because you're downsizing the industry, but it's also great because it makes everything much more efficient.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think there was anything missing about our conversation about design today?
I think that people need to understand that there's still some validity in pen and paper design, and like and illustration and like paint and artists and stuff like that. I feel like now that more and more as we're coming into this digital age, a lot of people are putting a lot of eggs in a basket in terms of like AI design and like using AI to like create movies and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, there's like a lot of advancements in that, but I don't ever think that like and we did talk about like how everything's getting downsized and a lot of it's getting automated, but I don't think that like those jobs are ever going to go away completely, because there'll always be a niche for it and there'll always be on authenticity, because it's like I think a good example of it is like claymation. Like,
yes,
you can't get authentic claymation unless you actually have the clay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or it's like the Steamboat Willie style type of like animation. Like, yeah, sure, AI can do it, but then it almost becomes like, it's AI, right? Yeah. So the only way to do it authentically is to do it like the old times, you know what I mean? Like pen and paper, and you kind of like flip and do all that frame stuff, right? So there'll always be a market for it. Granted, that market may not be as big as you thought it would be, but it's like, if you really are passionate about that, then like design wise, like no one's stopping you. No one's stopping you of being the master of that specific thing, but you just have to be really fucking good at that.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think that's like the biggest thing to kind of come and take away from here is that like, if you really want to be a designer in something very niche, if you want to be a designer in something that you're very passionate about, then you better best believe that you better be the best fucking person at that.
Yeah.
And like, that's like the best advice, honestly, that anyone can ever give you. You should always be striving to be the best fucking designer possible. And like, if you don't fully believe that, then it's like, maybe this just isn't the industry for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, you have to be able to hype yourself up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that also really comes hand in hand with like the whole death of craftsmanship. I've seen like a million reels about it recently. It's like everything is becoming minimalist.
Yeah.
And minimalism is being pushed a bit too far. Well, okay, but these extravagant things still exist.
Yeah.
There are just fewer of them because they cost more to produce in this day and age.
And they're just not as popular. But does that mean there's not a market for it? No, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And does that mean that the trends aren't going to turn right back around?
Yeah.
And focus back on that in a matter of as little as 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to a couple more personal questions. What's your favorite piece of work you've ever created?
I think, honestly, the Jason Stricker Club prototype that we made recently.
You were the third person that said that. That's so amazing.
Yeah. Tina, Aaron, and Brie probably share the same sentiment, but and Chris, if he's on this podcast as well. But like, it was a very like passionate body of work, I will say. And it's like, sometimes I had to ask myself, like, why am I working so hard to make this look so dope? But I think it's because we had someone close to us very much like intertwined with it. And so that's why I think it motivated me so hard to really make it like so good. It made us like really think about like how to develop that brand and how to develop like the prototype and make sure that it worked all proper, because it was connected to someone that we really cared about, right? And so I think that was my favorite, because it was the most technical piece of work I've ever done, in terms of like doing advanced prototyping and stuff like that, but it was also the most like sentimental thing. So it was like a 2-in-1 thing. Because it was like one of the first bodies of work that like we really didn't just come out of thin air. It came from something that like we see someone very passionate about, right? And we were willing to kind of create something based on that. And it only just started out, it kind of like just as like a joke. Like, we were like, oh, like, we should just do a sticker club marketplace. Like, it'd be so funny. Like, Tina makes stickers and like Jason does art and stuff like that. And then we actually just like really buckled down. And I think I was like, I just remember being up at like 12 in the morning, and I'm like, why the fuck am I working so hard to make this prototype work so well? And I was like, oh, like, yeah, like it's just something I really, really wanted to be proud of, and something that I just became very passionate about.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Do you make vision boards?
No, I don't.
Do you set goals for the year? What are your goals?
I do set goals. So I always hate I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I'm old, so um I always set like 3 short-term goals for the year, and then I always have one like overarching goal that I always think about, and then one long-term goal. So like the 3 short-term goals is to get a job, obviously in the industry. um 2 is like spend more time with family, and then 3 is really create pieces, like really further myself in design.
Right.
So like just hone my craft more, like be more attentive to like prototyping and stuff like that, right? My long-term goal, like as of right now, is to really start setting myself up for the future. So like, me and my partner want to get married soon. Me and my and then like obviously, like families is starting to come up as a thing, right? So just really setting myself up to be like that type of person. And my overarching goal, my life goal, is to is actually to be like the greatest dad I can be. um if you know me or don't know me, like I'm a very much like a family oriented person. I treat a lot of my friends like their family. I treat my family like their family.
No shit.
But like I think the one thing that like one of my biggest role models in my life is my dad, and one of the things that he really left with me was how great of a dad he was, and it's something that I really strive towards. So it's like every single thing that I do in life is for the kids that I'm going to have, right? And I think that's just my life goal in general, is to give like my next of kin like the best possible life that they can have, um in the capacity that I can. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I'm not Superman, like I can't, like just make shit out of thin air, but like if I can, I will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like in terms of like goal setting, like it's always that overarching goal, and then I think about that overarching goal, and then I make one long-term goal in like the next 5 years,
right?
And then I always make like 3 short-term goals for the year. Yeah,
that's a good setup.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you'll be an amazing dad.
Oh yeah,
100%.
I know I will be.
You have the dad lore on lockdown, bro. Ooh, if you could redesign any existing brand or product, what would it be? Aside from that Toronto basketball team.
Oh god. Personally, it would be a dream to redesign one of the sports teams, like one of a professional sports team, more specifically like the one that pops into my head the most, and it honestly won't ever get a redesign because of how iconic the design is. But like if I could like help redesign it and like I had full freedom, it'd be the Lakers, like Los Angeles Lakers, which is a basketball team based out of Los Angeles. But it was it's like a thing that like it's a logo that I come back to constantly and like think about, because it's like, how can you make something like, and again, it's so funny because I was talking about like, oh, like I hate logos with just like a basketball and words, and that's literally what the Lakers logo is.
Yeah.
It's a basketball with like words on the front. But like it's so minimalist and so iconic that like it just fits on a lot of things. Like the stars represent the Hollywood stars, and like the yellow and the purple like represent like reality of like the regality of like Hollywood, and like how bright the lights are and stuff like that. And like the outline is like white with like a little bit of black around it. And it's just the way that logo has aged is like timeless. Like, and if I could redesign it, I probably wouldn't, to be honest. Like I would try to modernize it a little bit, but like and make it so that like it isn't just a basketball and like and like the words. And it's so funny because it's like a perfect example of like how to make something so iconic it doesn't even hold the original meaning. So the Lakers are actually based in Minnesota, and the Lakers is based on like, because the Minnesota Great Lakes. But then they moved to Los Angeles, right? And there's no lakes at all in Los Angeles. But like it just like it's just synonymous with the city now.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that logo is just synonymous with that city. So it's just like I would definitely want to redesign that for sure. like it'd be a dream to redesign, but just like any professional team in general. Like if a new team was being made in like Calgary, like I'd love to make a Calgary sports team logo, or like I would love to make just a sports team logo in general, like for a professional team.
Yeah. I feel like that's very fitting for you.
Yeah.
And on kind of the opposite sense, in terms of personal projects, if you had like unlimited time, unlimited money, what passion project would you pursue?
Ooh. Honestly, I would try to honestly, like my big thing going forward is I want to be a product designer. So if I had unlimited resources and like unlimited like money and all that stuff, I would definitely try to create a product based I would really try to create a product based on like sports, and more so sports research. So I actually grew up like being a multi-sport athlete. I still play a lot of sports now to this day. So like I would really love to create an app that tracks like sports performance, or even like workout performance. Like it like just health in general and like sports in general is such an interesting topic to me. And to be able to combine like creativity and tech and sports would be such a like would be such a dream for me. And like to just create a product that like monitors sports performance, to create an interface, to create like the whole branding behind the product, and all that stuff. Definitely like one of the things on my bucket list if I ever become like a bajillion gazillionaire.
You will.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You gotta manifest it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is the most unexpected or strange source of inspiration you've ever had?
Oh, so I think the weirdest one, like the strangest one I've ever had, definitely would be oh, that's a good question. That one's a little hard. I think it'd be like a dream.
Oh, that doesn't matter because the camera.
Yeah. I think it'd be a dream. So one time I had a dream that like, so this was like back when I was a dancer. I had a dream that I was dating Oprah Winfrey.
What year was this?
This is like, this is pretty recent to be honest. This is like the 2020s, like the 2018 to like 2020s. Okay. I had a dream that I was dating Oprah Winfrey, and that dream got a little steamy. But I ended up making a dance choreo piece based off that, and everyone thought it was about my ex-girlfriend at the time, but it was actually about Oprah Winfrey. So the strangest source of inspiration.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Would you mind giving us a little demo of what that?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, was worth a shot. And is there a non-design related hobby or interest? I guess I probably know what you're going to say to this one. Yeah. But that influences your design work.
Yeah, definitely like dance and also like volleyball. I think those two definitely very much so influence my design decisions, and working out too. Like very much so in terms of like staying up to date in like terms of like science and being optimal and being efficient, especially when it comes to working out. It's very much so like it's become much more scientific now than like rah bro stuff. And like volleyball too, like just and just seeing like so how some of the courts are actually like designed, and seeing how some of the uniforms are designed, that definitely gives me inspiration as well. And like dance as a like just as an art form is like very much so like a very big inspiration of like movement and flow, and like how things should be in a more artistic sense, and then you start to add like the more technical sense through it, and that always reminds me of how like a lot of design should be.
Right. Absolutely. And last week Aaron was mentioning that when he's designing, the type of music he's listening to while he works influences his work. Would you say this is the same for you?
I'm kind of a maniac, so I actually design without music. I don't really like to listen to music when I'm designing, because I feel like it tends to I guess it is true what Aaron said. It does tend to influence me, so that's why I don't listen to music.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I want it to be in like the rawest form of inspiration. I think I think that music influences me almost negatively because it starts to create a vibe that like I might not necessarily deem as optimal. So it just gives me a clearer head to really design without any distractions really. I will say my environment tends to really influence my design decisions. So like I definitely design more for comfort when I'm at home, whereas like say I'm in a coffee shop or say I'm in a like at school, it tends to be a lot more busier and a lot more corporate focused.
Interesting. Okay. It's my favorite part, the rapid fire questions to close her off. What is your favorite font or typeface?
Futura or Montserrat.
Very nice. Favorite color combo?
Gray and blue.
Interesting. What shades of gray and blue?
Navy blue and like a melange like gray, almost like a heather gray. Yeah.
Very nice. If you could work for any company or client in the world, who would it be and why? This is already the Lakers, right?
Yeah, it'd probably be the Lakers, but like in a more realistic sense, like if I'm moving more into tech, I would love to work for Adobe, or I'd love to work for more of a video game based company like EA, or like even like Riot, because I play a lot of League of Legends. But yeah, I think on the top of the bucket list would definitely be Nvidia, which is like a gaming which is a tech company that mostly focuses on building computer parts, and then Adobe, which is obviously Adobe.
Very, very cool. And final question, what is your go-to beverage while you're working?
Definitely tea.
Tea. Interesting. Tea. What kind of tea?
Just like a Steve tea from Tim Hortons.
Word.
Honestly.
As you should.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. And that's enough dopamine for today.
Hey.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Ron, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Ron, go ahead and plug your socials.
Okay. This is my Instagram. It's at Ronald Atutubo. My website is www.ronaldatutubo.com. And my LinkedIn is www.linkedin.com/Ronald Atutubo.
Great job giving the whole links.
I got you.
You also have a podcast.
Yeah, I have a podcast. It's called You Good Homie. Tune into a couple episodes. It's just me and a bunch of my friends from high school, and we talk about men's mental health. So if you are a dude or not dude, and you just want to learn a little bit more about a more masculine point of view in terms of mental health and some other funner episodes, go check that out. Yeah, word.
It is a very good podcast. I can attest to that. Hey. Also, don't forget to follow at digitaldopamine.podcast on Instagram and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a like and a comment if you're interested. You can also find it on Spotify and Apple. And also follow my personal Instagram at Riley Melina Schmitz. Peace.
Hey, peace.